structure conversation.
Yes, I just had to go back and look. I was like, what one is this? Yeah. So I guess everything that Lexi and Casey, there's two Caseys. Sorry, I'm thinking.
Yes, two Caseys. Casey with a K, Casey with a C.
Lexi Townsend.
Yes. And so they created, so I guess the main thing, are we like pretty much all on the consensus then that the student government is going to be different structure than the typical on-ground student government because of what it's going to look like?
Maybe we want to start with making sure that everybody was able to watch the recording from the last meeting. Does everybody know what we're talking about with that?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So I guess that would be the first step, is determining, like what path we're going to go down. And I think pretty much everyone's in agreement. Even Casey Francis thinks that, it's a good idea to kind of build our own structure, at least until we can get student government built up. So it's more like formidable and stable like it is in the on-ground environment. But then the question is, what is that going to look like? So that's what we have to figure out.
I really liked the suggestion of dual presidents or co-presidents for a standalone structure so that we can represent undergrad and graduate students.
Okay.
Our other option of creating like an ASU online campus would be for undergrad only, and the graduate students would be absorbed into the existing campus of graduate students. And that kind of puts the grad students in the same predicament that we're trying to avoid now, which is having your voice swallowed, basically.
Yeah.
You said the graduates would be absorbed into, that's another one, the graduates would be absorbed into those on campus, the club on campus?
Well, right now the structure is there are 5 campuses.
Right.
Campus. There's Poly, Tempe,
West,
thank you, and well,
Ira, Fulton.
Right. And then the graduates count as their own campus, because those 4, which represent the 4 locations for ASU, are undergraduate only. So when the graduate students broke away and said, hey, we need our own representation because like our concerns are different from the undergrads and we need to have a voice too within government, they took all of the programs, all of the locations into one campus. So it's been offered to us that we could create a 6th campus for ASU Online, but that would only take undergraduate students. We would count as like a different location. So there would now be 5 locations for online undergrads. And the graduate students who are online would be absorbed into that graduate students campus that currently exists.
Okay.
Part of the concern with that is that the graduate students campus is fairly large. And if I'm remembering Casey's statistics right, you're only looking at about, 20,000 about graduate students who are online. They'd be swallowed pretty quickly. And then would you really be able to advocate for online graduate students within a framework where you make up such a small percentage?
But is that something worth bringing into the undergrad?
We would not be able to with sticking with the existing structure. That is where we would have to break away, so to speak, and create our own like parallel student government for online students.
Okay.
Well, my big concern about being absorbed in any way by the current student government is we don't need the same things that they provide, really. Because like Casey was saying at that meeting, a lot of what goes on with discussions and roundtables and whatnot is like talking about, what funds are used for, and that just doesn't pertain to us.
No, it doesn't benefit us at all. It would, because we're more like, how can we get programs and to reach students and how can we aid them
Right.
better.
We need a voice at ASU because so many of us aren't there. And I think that, in my mind, that would be, I think, in a perfect world, that's what our student government for online would be about, is making sure that we have proper representation, on campus where we're, generally not face to face with people. So it's easy to dismiss us, I think.
To me, creating a 6th campus exclusively to us would probably be the most ideal and best way to go about it, because that would give us the most representation.
And I would say at this point, to not include the grad students. Get established first, and then we can worry about online grad students later.
I agree.
I disagree.
That's not an option.
Yeah.
What the structure we pick is what we are going with.
Oh, really?
And what I mean by that is that so here's the thing. We have to create a proposal, the online student, we have to create a proposal to bring to the president of ASU and the board and say, this is what we propose would be the structure of online student government. If it's approved, it's solid. And we were warned by Casey and Lexi that we need to figure out what we want and we need to get a plan of how we're going to implement it. Because once you put something like that in motion and once you get the approval of everybody, of all the higher ups, you can't just roll it back and you can't easily change it, because what we are doing is we are fundamentally changing the existing structure of all of government.
Yeah.
No matter what we choose. So it's not, we have to figure out what we want, and we have to figure out for ourselves, how is that going to support all aspects of our student population before we put it forward.
And like Casey was saying too, to exclude the grad students is I think cutting out a large population and their strength in numbers. So why would we exclude them?
True. But they also have another group, so to speak.
No.
So that's
not really. Go ahead.
I think because Ellie, weren't you saying you were talking about graduate ground students, correct? You weren't talking about online having their own thing.
Correct, but they're still included in that group. And I understand, because it's the same way that we all feel that's why we're doing what we're doing. We don't have a group. They at least have a group.
Well, Cheryl, that's another option, is we could be absorbed by the existing campuses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even as undergrad. The thing is, though, is by numbers alone, we would be swallowed. You're talking about a few chairs held by online students. And then we have to propose how you're going to restructure all of the on-campus student government events to include the online students.
So it would split us up and we wouldn't have that representation. And that's what we're trying to accomplish here, is we're trying to get representation. So I understand what Cheryl's saying, and I understand what Rebecca's saying. So why don't we create a timeline to where we start to absorb graduate students into, like, we get established and then propose in our proposal include absorbing the graduate students and what they already have.
Get established as what? As what, Nick?
As an online government group for undergraduate folks right now. And then in our proposal to the president, have a timeline set up so that way we start to incorporate graduate students. So we have
We're already graduate. We are already representing undergraduate and graduate. That's done.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not, I recognize, like Lawson's a graduate student right now. This group, as put forth by Casey and Lexi, as they've backed the student proposals, it encompasses every single online student.
Okay.
Online. Our job is to figure out, how do we want our subpopulations represented? Do we want to keep everybody together, which is an estimated like 60,000 students? Or do we want to split our populations by undergrad and graduate students and then figure out how to support those two populations? But encompassing everybody, that part's done.
Yeah.
So then I like your first suggestion, which would be do the co-presidency. with an undergrad president and a graduate president, and then start breaking it down from there into subcommittees for each. Not, I guess we could say each major, but that's a lot. So we could
No, you couldn't do it by
each
majors, no.
I would say by school, like.
Well,
So that's still a lot of schools.
Yeah, it is. And traditionally that's how it's done, is that you have, so there's a couple different structures. There's the I'd have to pull it up, but it's AGS and USG, something along those lines, but they have senators from each college. And but here's the thing, we can create this part. So maybe what we want to do is we want to say, in our structure, we're going to look at student populations, and we're going to assign senators based on the number of students in each college. So maybe that puts your history and English majors with, I don't know, 5 senators, but maybe that puts your biochemistry majors with 1 because of the amount of students enrolled in each program. We can talk about the structure, or maybe we just want to say 1 from every college, and whatever that is. But I think if we split it based on population, then we leave ourselves room for expansion. But that's the kind of thing that we can talk about now too. Do we want to do 50-50 graduate students undergrad, or do we want to keep that similar to the number of students that we're representing in each group?
Well, I think if you want to include undergrad and grad together, then it needs to be like straight off the bat. So a grad student could become president, or an undergrad could be president. There should be no line drawn if that's the route you want to take for that, instead of having 2 presidents and 2, because then you're basically forming 2 separate committees. So instead of coming into a full force to the president and saying the online community is coming together as one, but we're going to separate it. Well, we can't do that. That's not going to look good.
how are we separating it by having co-presidents?
Yeah, I think it's more about cooperation amongst the 2 populations rather than a complete mixture.
But I think if we do like where anyone can run for president and vice president, whatever, so we have a mix of undergrad and grad students, that shows our cooperation.
But that removes a balance.
It does. And it means that the year that you have an undergrad as president, your graduate students may not have the same
Representation.
Yeah, it's not that whoever you elect as president won't do a good job. It's that if you elect president right now, I don't know what graduate students need. Yeah. So you could tell me, but I'm not going to be a student representative of graduate students. I just couldn't be. And I would.
And once you're a grad student, it's easy to forget the undergrad struggle.
There you go. And so I think
the peon struggle.
But your concern, Cheryl, your concern is valid. And so I think the way that we balance that is how we structure it. We structure it so that we don't have a division, but we have a cooperation. So your undergrad president has clear oversight over your undergrad positions, voting and oversight on anything that affects your undergrads. And your graduate president has clear oversight over those senators, over those concerns, over those voting choices. And then you have an area of overlap where your 2 presidents are expected to work together, because the fact of the matter is there are going to be things that affect undergrad and graduate students equally only in the online population. So we have areas that will affect both the undergrad and grad students in a way that the on-campus students don't, because they are so separate. I would guess that our populations, undergrad and grad, are more similar than the on-campus undergrad and on-campus grad.
Oh, absolutely. I would totally agree with that.
I agree.
But I do think that we need to be clear in our structure so that we don't have the issue that, Cheryl, that you were foreseeing there, where instead of looking unified, we look unbalanced and scattered.
Disjointed.
Divided.
Yeah.
Yes.
Divided, yeah.
I think that I don't know. I think that it, depending on, like Ellie said, how we structure it, that's going to be the most important part, because, I feel that it actually, if structured correctly, would show more unity than division. I think
Yes.
it shows our commitment to representation and to making sure that, hey, like bringing, you know, us wanting the graduate and undergraduate populations to be one, this is how we're going to make it work, instead of like, oh, well, you know, we'll just we'll have one president, undergrad or graduate, and everybody just gets to deal with it, you know.
I think part of this conversation too as well has to encompass what are our long-term goals and what are our short-term goals. What do we foresee that we want to work on in the next 5 years as we can develop infrastructure, and what do we feel like we can already support right now? Because there are things that it doesn't matter if you're undergrad or grad, it will affect you, such as support for student organizations. That's something that we can start working on now. That's something that ASU has already started working on now. That encompasses undergrads and grads alike. But then there might be things that are more program specific that would go to the respective president and their hierarchy, such as the orientation for incoming online students. That would be undergrad would have one orientation, graduate students would have another. So maybe they collaborate on the approach they want to take with the university, but it would still be separate. That's probably a weak example, but that's the first thing I could come up with that seemed like it would be relevant to a student organization or a student government, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is I think developing this is going to be more than what we can do as a handful of students. I think we're going to have to reach out and find out what our populations are, what the numbers look like, how many senators are we going to be talking about, or how many chair positions are we looking at along those lines.
Mm-hmm. I guess, I mean, I don't really know a solid way to do that unless, like Roxanne has been working on putting together the, the survey, and getting like responses and stuff like that. So that way we can kind of gauge interest as well. And obviously by the amount of people that are joining the group, we can, and are showing up to meetings and stuff like that is a good way to gauge interest. Like you guys said, that's part of the reason why we don't want to do the traditional government, especially right off the bat, because we don't really know what the interest is going to be, and we don't want to have all these positions that we can't really fill. And so, yeah, we're going to have to take that into consideration for sure. I
want to screen share real quick. Nick, are you host now? Casey, somebody, can I have screen share permission? This is a document that we've talked about before, and Sam just pulled it up as well. It's the current ASU 2019, oh no, it's the last calendar year, 2019-2020 goals and priorities, and shows very clearly why we don't want to integrate for undergrad or grad students, because their goals are amazing and their goals will definitely benefit students. Their goals will not benefit online students. And I look forward to screen sharing momentarily. You're muted, Nick.
Yeah. Yep.
Doing great.
It only gives me the opportunity to make you host or allow you to record. So I'm just gonna pass this over to you.
To play a hot potato with host.
Yeah, reclaim host. Hold on.
Well, Casey stole it.
Oh,
What? Come on.
Hold on.
That's fine. It's still recording, so we're good.
All right.
No, I don't want this recorded.
I'll edit
The old lady trying to figure out Zoom. Oh my gosh,
We
that's
got
hilarious.
this. Well, the point of this was if we could start with our goals and priorities, and then develop the structure from the goals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, loud car. All right. Does that show up for you guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can drop the link in the chat too.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if we could set something up like this, like we don't need sustainability, we're online.
We can completely rewrite diversity and inclusion because our entire structure could be that alone.
Yeah. but like the other 4 are a good starting place.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, as far as like why would we want to include the graduate students with us? Online graduate students aren't going to benefit from the Writing Center unless we can advocate that they open up to virtual meetings. But again, that would be specific to an online student that would be interested in that. Pre-pandemic, who knows what they want now? But
Yeah.
there's a second page that I can scroll to when you guys are ready, and then I'll drop the link as well so everybody can look at it. There's a lot here that with a little bit of modification fits our own goals as well. But the question is if we're mixing our goals with theirs, would those modifications get voted in to be part of the overarching goals? Because it wouldn't really apply to on-campus students.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Right, so they're getting lost.
Security on campus.
Yeah. I mean, in health services, that doesn't apply to online students. Like most of this doesn't really apply, but this format of developing goals and priorities.
Yeah.
And then our structure could be defined by the goals instead of trying to create them both at one time.
Yeah.
Start with goals, then move on to, because structures.
Like
Yeah.
we could have a whole section on families, but it wouldn't necessarily be about providing in-person childcare. Perhaps it consists of providing students with easier access to resources or to, I don't know, increased outreach to professors for the number of students that are parents. I'm just coming up with things here, but in other words, general topics, I think there's a lot of overlaps, but the details, these actual checkpoints that they listed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Casey, you said something on the Facebook about a working document. Like,
Yeah.
what if we like start with a goals working document? I mean, we don't have to have these categories, but this is what they currently have.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The Tempe campus. And I think they probably want some sort of consistency amongst all the student governments. I'm sure.
I think it would also look good to present a document that's very similar to what they're already used to seeing.
Yeah.
Because part of what we're trying to prove too is that we can work with the existing structure. We're not trying to burn it down. We're just trying to create our space within it that benefits our students.
And to then show where we don't fit in and why we need our own.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding from listening to Casey and Lexi speak about their conversations with ASU is that part's pretty well understood, which is to our benefit. I think this would be a lot harder if we were also having to come from a place of why it's important. I think we have their attention with that. It's just how are we going to do it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's really great is a lot of this is available online to all students. It's part of their constitution and everything is that everything's available to be seen. So we could start pulling documents, and we could make a Google Drive, a shared Google Drive, to anytime somebody comes across a resource like this, to add it there, to use as examples.
Templates, just to have things already
Yeah.
said, because the more it looks like things that are already in place, the more it legitimizes us.
Yeah, and it also helps us with legitimacy that we're not trying to like reduplicate efforts either.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I can make one of those real quick too.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. Roxanne, I saw your message about you had an email from Lexi you wanted to share with us. And now we've been just gabbing away for 36 minutes.
I'll message her on Facebook. Hold on.
All right. She may have muted to wait patiently.
She's here.
Mm-hmm. So what do we want to have to present Friday, which is tomorrow?
Yeah.
I think we should definitely bring up this document
Okay.
as like an example of.
Right. Have a backbone of our goals.
Mm-hmm.
And then just say we weren't going to start building structure until we had a backbone of goals to branch the structure off of, because if we don't have an agreement of what our goals are, we can't start on structure. yet.
Yeah. And I think we almost have like a 3-pronged attack here on what we want to know is what would benefit undergrad students, what would benefit grad students, and what would benefit online students as a whole, regardless of program.
So I just invited everybody in this meeting to a shared Google Drive where I will add like the resources just for everybody to work off of, and then Casey, you can add like the working document that you had, and then
Okay.
that way everybody can
Do
collaborate.
we all have edit permission to add and change things too?
Oh, I
That would help.
yes, yeah.
Oh, Roxanne said she's here.
All right, Roxanne, go for it. I will stop screen sharing.
So I did create the survey, and there have been responses, and a lot of them are, I gave everybody the option to list like a specific concern. So I think that's a good way. Like, I think Ellie, you have access, Nick has access, Lawson, you guys have access. So if you guys have a chance to like kind of look and see what the students are not griping about, but like their concerns. And I also wanted to jump on this meeting because we're responsible for outreach, but I'm like, I can only say like your goals, you know, and your like needs so much. But I was hoping like if I could jump on here and then hear kind of, you know, your structure so I can make something that pertains specifically like, hey, this is a specific thing that we're trying to tackle. Because goals and needs and advocacy is very general, you know. So another thing I wanted to mention was Lexi had emailed me in reference to coming up with a small statement to put in the Sun Devil scoop.
The B term. Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't want to like email her back without talking to you guys, because you guys are huge. Like, I mean, you guys are doing the structure of our online government. So I wanted to kind of see, you know, what you guys thought would be a good, I don't know, not slogan, or maybe even our mission statement.
There was a few responses on that mission statement post, but nothing.
Maybe
great.
we need to revive it and give it a deadline.
Yeah. So, because I know it goes out on the 15th, I believe she said. So, as you know, it would benefit us to have that in there.
Yeah.
But like I said, the small group of students that are like, yeah, outreach and advocacy, all of us had said like we need to hear from the other subgroup because they hold such a huge part in all of this. Like it would behoove us to hear.
Yeah, none of this can be done alone. It's only going to be done by us all working together.
Right.
And Roxanne, you're not limited to one subgroup. You're in this meeting. You're in goals and structure.
Well, because like I only can do like so much, but I need to know more like specific things. Like we're really looking forward to, like you said, for, you know, parents who are online students, having the university give us better access to free resources for our children, especially now during the pandemic when a lot of them are not going to school. That could be something like if I saw that, I would be like, oh, free resources, heck yes, let me see what this is about, you know? So just like outreach in general is heavily based on what goals and the structure that you guys come up with so we can let other people know.
I think there's a lot of room too for us to figure out like what our breakdown should be. Like that page showed like a solid breakdown of like 5 main like topics and how you want to break it down. But student engagement in an online setting, that could be half of our overall like aims.
Yeah, that was a big thing that was put on, like that was a big response on the survey was we don't have a community. I don't know who I can go talk to. I wish I had a peer to help me out after I graduate, like things of that nature. And the ASU like peer network, if you guys are a part of it, like that's helpful, but you want to hear from another online student, like how did you do it? Who did you talk to? Or how can we work together? So having a community for the online population is a big concern among them. They're like, we feel alone, basically, like we're out here on our own trying to figure it out. And
the ASU Online Peer Network is actually a Facebook group for online students and was started and is run by online students, just as a FYI.
Well, I'm talking about like the app. Where it's kind of like the LinkedIn for specifically ASU students.
Yeah, there's Handshake, there's People Grove. I see what you're saying. My apologies. I thought you were talking about the Facebook group.
No, I'm talking about like the actual app through the university, you know, and things of that nature. And just kind of pushing out the survey, like we need to hear, like in order for us to help you guys and help like have goals to work towards for your subgroup, like we need to hear back from them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we also need to hear from you, because we need to hear the feedback that you're getting from students, because that in itself is going to shape the structure. It's like this.
Yeah. So I know there's a few grad students that did fill out the survey. So they want their representation, and their concern was completely different from the traditional like undergrad.
Yeah.
So when we were talking about like swallowing them, and I don't know, I feel like that would be unfair, you know, for them in that aspect, because we don't know what they need.
What do you mean, just to clarify, by swallow? Because we talked about not wanting the on-campus graduate population to swallow the online graduate students, or do you mean not get lost within online students in general?
Like not get lost with online students in general. Your idea of having two presidents to cater to both subgroups, like the you know, because you're right, the undergrad president is the head of the organization. It's impossible to really know. We're not there. We're not at that stage yet in our lives to understand the needs that they have. So I like the idea. And I also like the idea of senators too, based off population.
Yeah, and the graduate government they have, in theory, represents online students, but they actually don't have any online students that actually are on the committee or that are doing anything like that. So they're not really represented.
Lawson, to my knowledge, you're the only graduate student currently in this meeting. Do you have any like quick, what comes to mind that would benefit you as an online graduate student that we may not think of as undergrad students, of the 7 people who are here? 8 people.
That's a good question. So I was an undergrad student at ASU for 2 years, I think, and then I went into my grad program. And so far, I've noticed that most of the concerns are going to be similar or the same when you're like in an online environment, which is like, you know, in academic opportunities. I know that Casey was talking about, I think a couple of weeks ago, how, you know, we want access to more classes. Like it doesn't make sense that they offer, you know, these classes as I-courses, but
Right.
It's a limited number, or it's a limited amount of classes that they offer to online students. So I think that would be something that grad students would be interested in. So I think most of the concerns are going to be similar. I can't think of anything that would be unique off the top of my head, except maybe more opportunities to be able to like work as a TA, or more professional experiences for grad students that are more, I guess, more prominent among the online population. So things like that. But I feel like for the most part, it's going to be the same concerns and you know, desires and needs as the undergrad population.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of this that is like, we can come up with like our perspective and how we have a general idea of how we might like it to be different, but it's going to have to involve the university. because we don't know their structure, their rules, or why they do things, and whether or not it's even something that student government could influence.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe what we want to do is create a list of generic goals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, maybe we want to, I'm sorry, I'm speaking for our proposal coming up. Maybe we want to say something like, support the online programs towards being more self-sustaining. And maybe what we mean by that is to encourage professors to hire online students to TA online classes, so that you have like your online programs that are feeding into itself to not just educate your students, but also provide opportunities for your students within that same program to help the program as a whole grow into of the potential of what it could support. But maybe instead of like giving a bullet point like more online TA positions or more online classes, when as students we have no idea how that actually happens, like the background, maybe we give it a more generic like aim, and then we say let's start the conversation about whether or not this is even an option. Like how could the university see us creating these, helping these programs be more self-sustaining? What can the students do to help support this goal that everybody's agreed is part of the bigger picture? That type of thing.
That's a really good point, Elle. I was thinking about that as we were talking earlier. Like, there's going to be a difference between, you know, a list of things we want to accomplish versus what we can actually do in practice. Mm-hmm. And I feel like even if we can't accomplish certain things, we can at least advocate for them. Yeah. And so I feel like that would be part of our mission as student government, would be to advocate for issues that people, you know, like maybe more online classes. And as you were bringing up as you brought up that one document, something I thought of was maybe doing like a online version of the Honors College, the Barrett Honors College, which would be, I think, a really good idea. So, I mean, I guess we can make like a list of things that we would want to at least advocate for, even if we can't do it in practice. And like you said, we could do something like more generic, so it's not, I don't know.
Yeah, I like that as an advocate. That was not a word. Advocacy list. Because mm-hmm. I think one of the things that we have to be careful about is we are brand new. And I think we have to be careful because whatever we present, that is the first impression that the college is going to have of online students. I think we have to be careful that we don't show up with this grand list and all these demands that are so far from what they could possibly accommodate that we lose their respect. Mm-hmm. That we look like the online students, they don't understand at all. They don't have any idea of how this all works. They don't understand what's realistic. They don't know what they're asking for. I think we have to be careful to approach this in a way that we can stand on and we can grow from. And kind of like Nick was saying, start with our foundation and then expand from there as we have that foothold. Because I think online students in general, I don't mean this about ASU, but in general, online programs have a bad reputation. They have a bad impression. People have a specific opinion of online students and what online programs mean. And ASU has done a lot to fix that, to combat that. And I think we need to kind of keep that mentality in mind and not come across as though we're out of touch, because we're not out of touch. We just want a place.
Right. I agree. And I actually almost just read something like that so I have access. I don't know if anybody else, or I know a couple of other people in here have access to the survey, but as a backbone to start building our goals off of, like, I'm looking at this right now, and 73% of people who have answered, do you feel like you have adequate access to professors, advisors, and ASU staff as an online student? 73% of people said sometimes. Like, so they feel like they have access not all the time, or to me that just shows that like they don't feel seen sometimes. And then was a part for biggest concern, and a lot of it says just that, being seen by my professors, the lack of student interactions, the tuition, there's no clubs, there's no community, stigma like you just mentioned, And then there's one that's like an essay that I won't read. But building relationship and getting involved. Hold on, let me read this big one. I'm not going to read it.
Just quickly, sorry. Where is this survey? Where was it posted? What was the?
Roxanne shared it, and then
I'm still host. I have power.
Where was this?
It was posted to the Facebook group. Roxanne created it with the outreach group.
And it was on the government group?
Yes.
It's on the government group? Okay.
Yeah, there's a tacky video attached to it that says take our survey.
It is not tacky. It's great.
oh my god, she did such a great job.
We
with
love
that.
you, Roxanne.
Yeah.
If you
I sent it to Nick, and Nick was like, "Oh, we're going this hard," and I was like, "Hell yeah!"
You can do so much with information, though. If people will
Is this survey something that can be posted on the main Sun Devil page or no?
Yes, it can. I had asked a few people if they would look over the questions and see if it was appropriate, if there was anything that they wanted to add. Nobody responded, and Casey and Lexi, nobody said they would change anything. That's what I meant. But Casey and Lexi were like, yeah, it's cool. Hey, we just put up here on top, like, this is going to be collected by your peers, not the university, as a disclaimer. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, no problem. Cool. I'm sorry that I didn't include that. I kind of felt like I dropped the ball on that. But they said, yeah, go ahead. You can share it in any platform that you want. The whole little video or whatever at the end, it does say like, hey, get involved, share, join our Facebook group. Keep voicing your concerns and things of that nature.
No, Roxanne, you did an awesome job.
Scroll down. There's a big essay one right there. Sorry to interrupt you. Right there.
No. I was trying to go slow while you guys were talking so that people could just kind of like look through it. Is this legible for you guys? Is it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
It's going to be a balance, right? About where people concerns are versus where we can actually make an impact, where we can take a step forward.
To me, what I've obtained is the price hike in tuition, community, mentorship, and menteeship, and visibility. I think those are core things that we should look at and try to work on and establish, because to be honest, a year ago I didn't know what I was doing, and I still ask questions, so it'd be nice to have a mentor or maybe somebody who is a graduate student like Lawson, who did their undergrad at ASU. I believe he said 2 years of undergrad, and so they have that experience to give to undergrad students who are sophomores or freshmen, sophomores, juniors now. We could establish a graduate, a big brother, big sister, big person program, you know what I mean? And have graduate students mentor undergraduate students to create that cohesion. But those are things we should look at, is mentorship and menteeship, creating a inclusive place where people feel like they can reach out and express their concerns and be seen and be visible and feel like ASU cares about what they have to say as an online student. Because when I fill out those surveys at the end of every semester or quarter, I don't feel like they look at it. I don't feel like they're taking what I have to say into consideration. So I feel like if online students feel more like they're heard by their peers and their peers are fighting for them, that'll make them feel seen, as you can see, the visibility aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
There's a lot we can do with advocacy, and we actually have an advantage because ASU has put a lot of manpower towards building infrastructure for online students in the last couple of years. And a couple of things come to mind with that. Nick, when you were talking about mentorship, People Grove is a brand new mentorship platform that has been, I think it's been like a soft launch. I'm not sure if it's fully gone out, but there was, it was through SMS to start, and I'm not sure if there are plans to expand it. But the reason I bring it up is it was meant to be a mentorship program for online students from online students. So we talk about this idea of mentoring from graduate students to undergrad, or online student, like senior online students to incoming. We may not have to start from scratch, because there are people already in departments through ASU Online who have tried to move in this forward direction. And it may be that what the students can do is we can pick up the mantle and we can advocate for it to keep going forward. We can advocate for some of these programs for continued funding, because maybe they were launched as pilot programs, but they didn't have the same popularity, so they didn't get a chance to get off the ground. Maybe that's where we can step in.
Right.
So we may not have to create all of these things that we want to do, but what we might be able to do is be the voice to say, yes, we want this. Here are our numbers. Here are the people interested. Give us the links. We will send it out amongst ourselves and our population. Here's what we want. I think we will be able to be successful by working with structures that are already being created. And part of our process is going to have to be finding them. It's going to have to be reaching out to professors and saying like, hey, do you have any like pet projects for online students that you have been working on that we can try to grow from the student perspective? Because I know that there have been like a couple of things that have been launched for online students that haven't had the response that they needed in order to continue with it. So that type of thing. But like, did students really ever get a chance to hear about it?
Right.
Or could, if more advocacy had happened at the time, could it have been more popular?
To be honest, like what you just said about People Grove, it makes me feel like, because there are things that other schools that they don't do, like somebody said their school doesn't send out a newsletter. And to me, like, I feel like SMS is definitely a few steps ahead of some other schools. So I think it would be cool, like you said, to take things like People Grove and expand it and do things with it and not have to start from scratch. So yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Souls also does a newsletter, I believe.
Souls does, yep.
Yeah.
And so does the what is the it's like what my anthropology degree is under. It's like SCHS or something. Oh, I'm terrible. Whatever that college is. They do a newsletter.
So these are the individual responses, the comments and such. I don't think any of these comments are a surprise to any of us, as because of all things we've felt as well. I'm going to be honest, tuition, I don't think we want to make that our very first stance. I think
we'll never change that. It's a uphill battle.
Well, hold on with that. I don't think that's true. And here's why I would say that. Because Casey Francis was talking about with the fact that online students, we don't pay into student government currently, which is why the online clubs cannot get funding through student government. That has not always been the case. Online students did used to pay into student government, but I think she said it was about 10 years ago. Does that sound right, guys? About 10 years ago, the online students all came together and said, hey, we're paying into something that we literally don't benefit from. And they were able to gain enough momentum to have that removed from the tuition.
Yeah.
So
things do change. I mean, when I was going to NC State, I had to buy a parking permit while I was online in Japan. Oh, things do change.
did you get a good spot though?
I mean, right?
Sell that on the black market, Casey.
Y'all, when I called the financial office, they were like, oh yeah, no, it's just we charge that to everybody. I was like, right, but I'm in Japan. Right, it's just part of the fees. I was like, what?
So yeah. my point of that is that we might be able to have an impact on that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't necessarily think it's what we want to lead with, because I think everybody will excited about that as our primary point.
I think other organizations themselves are getting a lot of pushback about this. So it's not something that we need to tackle.
No, I agree. And to be honest, if you look at, other universities, OSU in particular comes to mind, because I feel like a lot of Oregon State is they're prestigious in their own way with their online programs. And ASU is right on par with them. So yes, it's expensive, and yes, it's nauseating every time I go to take out another loan. But, you know, at this
Yeah.
point in the game, until like somebody, until more people start voting in our political elections.
That
And
could be
I'll say,
something that we talk about too, is like getting resources together for online students, like the best loans that you can take out. Maybe doing like a scholarship rundown, because a lot of people don't know how to apply to scholarships.
right.
So kind of getting resources like that together so they can offset that, because it is negotiating. I did have to.
Are there any specific online scholarships? Has anyone looked and researched into that?
No, there isn't. For like, okay, for my college, anybody can apply to any scholarship. But I don't know how that works for other colleges. There isn't a, are you online or are you not online? Are you ground? Everybody can apply. And then it's all the numbers game. Like, is your GPA good?
Right. Yeah.
That's different college to college though. And that's an area where advocacy could be huge. SMS opened up this year, and I speak about SMS because it's the college I'm in, right? Everybody comes with their own experience, but that's how we can unify, by being together. SMS opened up their awards this year to online students. And these were like merit awards to their students for academic performance, for engagement, for research, etc. These were things that online students didn't even know existed. So we didn't know we were missing out on it. I believe they were faculty nominations, and then it was approval. But that all happened without, we didn't even know it existed. So how many other things are like that advocating from an online student perspective of saying,
we have no idea about.
Yeah, like throw online students in the mix. Maybe we don't have the research experience to back it up. So maybe we're not a competitive candidate. Maybe we won't win the award, but consider us.
Yeah.
I think the on-ground campus students, that are coming in as freshmen or even transfer students, I'm pretty sure they get offered and considered for like merit scholarships based on GPA and stuff like that. I don't really think that's something they do for online students. Because if you're applying as like even a freshman student or anything like that, or a transfer student, I think it's pretty much unheard of that they offer merit aid for online students. So that would be something.
Yeah, like the Obamacare money, or not Obamacare. There's the Obama money. It's the Obama money. I don't know exactly what it is.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and like presidential funds. Online students don't get any of that.
How about the CARES stimulus?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got zero. They counted us as attendance to get the most money, but we don't see a dime out of it.
Yeah.
How is that a thing?
It honestly isn't against ASU, because it's the federal said it that no online student in the country is getting it, but ASU was able to count us to get the money, but we don't see a dime of it. But it's not their fault.
There's also a lot that we don't know about because we don't know about it. So I think just by having an organization, just by having a voice, you can accomplish a lot by asking questions and having the numbers to back it up. So, I mean, just from this conversation alone, I think we've established that advocacy is our pillar.
Yeah.
We also have a very clear way that we can support student organizations through connecting students, and that can even go so much as just providing resources from student group to student group, which we've already been doing on our own, right? Like, look at how many more clubs have popped up, and Casey and Lexi are amazing as far as for their support of student groups at any level. But if we can bring all that into the student government like hub of where your student government can support your student organizations, that builds in hierarchy, that builds in structure. And I don't mean to suggest that the student organizations would report to student government, but if that was a common resource, no matter if you were in health sciences or history or English or digital studies, if you knew that you had somebody advocating for you and that you had senators that represented, that'd be really cool.
So just to kind of not overly, but condense things really because I'm taking notes. So things we just discussed was visibility, mentorship, community. I put tuition on there, but I put it at the bottom of the list because I know we're not really too concerned about right now. And
Well, advocating for student concerns.
right. So in building relationships, so that could be, we could either make them each individual goals, or we could do it like that sheet that Sam showed us, and kind of put that all under advocacy, kind of like how they had it in like group or grouped. So advocacy can be our top priority, our number one goal, and then visibility and mentorship and community or experience, and then building relationships can all be sub goals, I guess, or like milestones, whatever, however you want to.
I like that. I also like the idea of prioritizing them based on feasibility, like short term to long term.
Okay. Not that I don't understand.
Guys,
I don't know.
go ahead.
Go
Nick.
I don't know how we could. Yeah, I don't know how we could put a number to it, like, because then we'd have to go even deeper and be like, well, what exactly are we looking for with visibility and like community? You know what I mean? Like, so we'd have to like dig deeper to set the time frame.
Oh, I meant more of the overarching categories, like one, advocacy, building community support, because like maybe your fifth goal is growing infrastructure for the student government,
right?
To increase your senators, to increase your footprint. I don't know if that's the wrong word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean the individual checklists.
Okay.
I meant like the.
Yeah, I just interpreted it wrong. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Like what kind of goals do we want to accomplish in advocacy in 1 year, 2 years? So I got you.
I also think our what we will be able to go run with the fastest is things that we can do on our own, such as connecting the student groups and recruiting for membership needs to be a huge part of it. Recruiting people to and how do we do that?
We've already, well, when I say we, Roxanne and company have already like reached out to ASU and asked for us to get on the banner, and have asked for us to like already start getting our name out there. And we brought up like getting involved in ASU 42, which is like the introductory class, and having like a representative go there and like maybe teach or like have a little like discussion group for a day, or however, I forget how long the course was, but and have a discussion group as a part of like student advocacy, or what students expect and things like that, and how they can get involved with a student government.
Mm-hmm.
And that so, but I apologize, ASU 42, is that an online orientation?
Yeah.
Do each of the colleges have different codings for those classes?
Oh, sorry. I think mine was different because it was military orientation.
Yeah, okay. So I think it's ASU 101 or 111.
111 or
111?
Something like that. Yeah, that's what I took.
Okay, no, that makes sense, Nick. But same idea. Basically, so that when you have your introduction to the university, no matter what point you're coming in at your like education, you have a here's ASU, here's Canvas, because that's like big part of it, code of conduct. Also, here's your government, here are your student organizations, here's your community.
Yeah,
I love that.
Oh yeah, when we brought that up to Casey, that was kind of like same concept, where we were kind of trying to put everything in like feasibility order. And that was one of our very last goals, was to try to get some type of representation into the online orientation, because it explains just the minimum of what you need, you know, and that's it. And then it cuts off and you're like, okay, I'm going to try to figure this out on my own. And she's like, we can work towards that once we're established. Like that could be one of our goals, but we can't try to like rush into that too quickly.
Right.
So once we have everything rolling, she's like, this is definitely a place we need to be in, because people don't know, and we just don't, you know?
Yeah, I would imagine part of that will come with time too, as far as showing that the ASU online student government, that we're going to stick around, that we aren't just a flash in the pan, basically, because I would imagine that the university wouldn't necessarily want to back us until we've shown that we can be self-sustaining and that we are going to be something that continues.
How would you guys feel about consulting with an on-ground representative, just so they can give us insight about like what is actually feasible, what kind of stuff they do, just to kind of give us perspective about, how we can structure our government?
From on-ground student government?
From somebody from on-ground student government.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Because I'd imagine that there's even the things that on ground comes up against, such as tuition hikes. It would be interesting to hear their list of things that they have found are beyond their scope.
I had an on-ground, I'll have to go back and find, but I had an on-ground campus representative message me and say that they were interested because they had been advocating for online student government for some time. So I think there's probably a constituency within the on-ground student government that is like wants to see an online student government. So I definitely think that we can find allies in the on-ground student government as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would imagine there are people there who have seen the need but haven't had the ability to support it, which is why we're here, right?
Right.
So like a liaison.
So for tomorrow, for what we want to present to the group as a whole, we have the existing document from 2019-2020 goals and priorities that we are using kind of as our framework of how we want to bring it forward. We have the short list that Nick's been taking notes on of basically what we've talked about today. We have a pretty clear direction as of the last 2 meetings now that we want to do some sort of standalone system that represents both online undergrad and online grad students equally, but within their own rights, within an online system. And then as well, we haven't really gone into detail on this, but that we have like the short list and long list within what Nick's been taking notes on there. And that we're working with the other groups, such as student outreach, to figure out what it is that students are actually saying they want.
Is that the only other group, the only other active subgroup?
It's the only other group that well, actually, that's not true. I got an email. So let me look. Has anybody else heard from any of the other groups?
I think I kind of like scrolled through and went through your post to see if other people were meeting. And I think the other one that was meeting was the bylaws, right?
I got an email to
What you're looking for?
join the ASU Online Government Roles document that they started.
This is not a very good structure.
What's not a good structure?
Having that be separate from this.
Yeah. So maybe we want to reach out and
Yeah.
I think that this group was researching the current roles to compare.
Okay.
I believe this is I could be wrong.
I think they're the same. This group and that group, I think they're
the same ones, because they started looking up what's the existing.
And I think, since we're going to be like a standalone, there are things I think that we're going to incorporate in our that are similar to the on ground, like the Supreme Court seat. So maybe we could say it's kind of going to be like a hybrid. So we're going to be, we're going to be standalone, but we're also going to incorporate things that, that the on ground student campus does, like the Supreme Court. Because I feel like we wouldn't want to be excluded from that.
Yeah, but the Supreme Court might be on our long-term list because there's a lot that has to happen for that to work. They would have to completely restructure so that all hearings, everything was done in a virtual manner so that your online student would be able to attend. And as well, I would imagine it would have to, that all the campuses would have to agree because they're giving up their 5th rotating seat.
So my understanding is it was already in a virtual, they already do it virtually because they're from all the different campuses, or do they do it in person?
Because of COVID.
Oh, just because of COVID.
Yeah.
Well, and I thought that Casey said that they did virtual, and then like once a month there was everybody came together.
I think it's the, like when you have a hearing, when you have like
Yes, I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah. No, this conversation about whether or not we request that ASU Online takes that last seat, because right now I think there's 6 seats, 5 are held by the existing campuses, and the 6th one rotates.
Mm-hmm.
So it was whether or not we wanted to request that an online student hold that seat for representing our government. I like the idea, I'm going to be honest with you, particularly because it really puts us as equals. It puts our government that we're trying to create right now on equal footing.
But does that mean that that person has to be local to Arizona?
That's the question, right? Because no, not if you're going to make it truly open to online students, but that requires a complete restructuring of how they do things currently, which maybe we have an opening for because they're already figuring out how to do it in a virtual manner. But it's a larger conversation.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest or kind of mention. How does anybody know how that's working with COVID as right now, as far as virtually, as far as the structure? Is it something that they can see implementing in the future? Is there any hiccups with it since we went online with it? Because if so, that might be a great place to start.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a subgroup that is on that topic as well.
Yes, there's like 2 people in it, but I I will see if maybe I can like reach out to them and see like if they need if they want any like help or anything, just since there's like only 2. But since it's kind of like a narrow topic, maybe they'll be fine.
I think that's where tomorrow's meeting is really going to help, because we've had an opportunity for small groups of people to come through and do like these think alouds basically, and then we can all come together, figure out what already looks like it's not going to work, what already looks like it will work, and then how to weave that all together and continue to work together.
Yes. Sorry, I disappeared for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think tomorrow will be really good because we'll be able to come together and everyone will kind of just be able to lay out what they think, what they have, and then we'll go from there. I think Casey said that we were going to meet maybe this time and then maybe one more time or something before she kind of has people start actually drafting things.
For the proposal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that'll work. And Roxanne has been doing really, really awesome with outreach. I mean, she's been able to get the group from 119 to 240 something now, I think. So it's growing, which is really good. I think a lot of people are interested. And I think when students come back in the fall, which is something we've discussed in the LGBT group, is that, you know, students are going to be coming into the fold because there's some students over the summer that kind of just step away and don't want anything to do with school until they start again. So,
or you're going to have an influx of transfer students and new students who are looking for outreach, and lucky for them, they find it a lot more easily than we did.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's also going to be an article coming out. I still don't know when. Have they talked to you yet, Elle?
I definitely have that email that I need to respond to. Sorry, my whole week got screwed up by not having internet.
You're fine. So the state press is doing an article on student government. And they probably talked to Casey if they reached out to you too. And so I'm hoping that will give us more publicity as well. Not just for online students, but also for, you know, the campus in general, students everywhere, because I think it's a story that they said that they're really excited about, and I think that it's going to make people at least start talking and having the conversation. So.
And then the only last thing is the mission statement to
Mhm.
bring together by July 15th is when the email's going out. So before then.
So yeah, at least a week before then, because they said they wanted to see it and they wanted it. They're like, we want to see it before, like, we, take your submission, let us look at it before.
Mhm.
And also the banner. So Nick had said that he had kind of had a general banner, but another thing I was kind of like talking about with the other group was like, should we come up with a logo? Like what, and it all comes back down to like what the people who are the backbone are, what you guys really think and things of that nature, so we can come up with a logo. We can put the logo on our banner.
Roxanne, I feel like you can just like make stuff like you just stuff and like it happens. And so I feel like if anyone could design a really good logo, it'd probably be you. So maybe you can, if you have time, you can like draft maybe some ideas of what you think a good logo would look like, and then present them to like Casey and everybody, and we can kind of, look at them and see what we think.
Okay, I can do that.
Because now I thought you were like a graphic design major or something, but you're actually in health, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm a healthcare or health education, health promotion, but a big part of because I have a community walking group that I established in my city, and a big part of that is advertising for the group. So I had to learn how to make my stuff not look like homemade and more professional to get people to come out and do the walking group. So I learned a lot because of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. You're like really, really good at it. I was like, whoa, she has got this down. So
thank you. That's very sweet of you.
And then something I talked with Roxanne, and I think I mentioned it to Elle and some other people, is that something that I was thinking about bringing up is establishing maybe like subcommittee leads. So people that would kind of help coordinate the different subcommittees. So like for community outreach, I was thinking that Roxanne would be really good to lead that committee. She'd help coordinate everything. And it wouldn't be, like you said, it wouldn't be like, this is how it's going to be done. It's more like somebody that's going to help, set the meetings and stuff like that. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think they're integral to a organization of this size to have, because you can't just have a president, you can't just have like the elected officials and not have subcommittees to help them run, because there's the gears and then the cogs, and really that's what cogs are, the subcommittees and people who lead all that.
Yeah. And then that person could kind of be like as a contact for, if Casey had questions about what this committee is doing, she could ask that person, just so it's like not so disparate, like, just a bunch of loose people, walking around it. I think it'd give it more structure if we had people that were doing that, and it'd be more organized.
I have to agree with you.
Okay. So
I wonder if maybe this conversation we want to move to Friday. Because I'm also wondering if maybe there are some of the subcommittees that we want to try to combine or divide differently.
Yeah, I think that one that Sam mentioned, and by the way, Sam, I didn't even recognize that was you at first. I was like, oh, hi, Elle, brought a friend. And so, yeah, I think that's a good idea, is to bring that up. Like, I don't even know what I was saying, but Sam, once you brought up combining that, the group that was drafting that proposal or researching it with this group would probably be a really, really good idea, just because we're pretty much working on the same thing. So
it's impossible to have one without the other on that.
Yeah.
It'd be especially nice to get everybody on one shared drive so they can all share documents that they're working on. especially with bylaws and constitutions and things, and those things, like, we need to be able to have eyes on it.
Don't remind me of the bylaws. We already have. No, yeah, I have like PTSD from the LGBTQI Constitution drafted that.
I thought I was done with all that for like 5 minutes.
No, it was, and Elle knows because she drafted the ideas one too. But yeah, it was, I mean, because you're constantly revising it, and then you're like, okay, we got to change this. And like, oh, what about this? What about this? So it's a good process, but very interesting.
Yeah. The reason it's so good and the reason it's so time consuming though is because it's a lot of voices.
Mm-hmm.
With ideas, I think we had
a lawyer and an English major look it over before we.
Yeah. I think we had like 12.
I mean, by coincidence. But
yeah, 12 people who consistently joined those meetings to
Mm-hmm.
we talked pros and cons till we were blue.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But it made for a strong constitution, and it's going to happen again here. It's what we have to do.
Yes.
It has to be even better.
It has to be even better.
Yeah.
It has to involve more voices, has to involve more people. And that's part of this too, is that like these subgroups are great, but we need more than 5 people in little clusters doing this. We need what our goal should be is that we create like a general framework, a general outline of like the direction we want to take, so that there's room for just like a mass of people to come in and lean one way or the other on certain issues, and then we can take that and go with it.
Yes.
If you have enough representation and enough voices to confidently do that.
Yes. And I think, personally, something that I feel like I learned from ideas, and for those who don't know what we're talking about, Sam and I are involved in Idea Student Society, as is Casey, as is Nick, as is Roxanne, Shannon as well.
Spiritually.
One of the things I think I learned there is that I initially, like, I saw my role, like, as president to include everybody, and I wanted to hear every voice, and I wanted every voice to be equal. And I think that I actually probably inhibited our progress a little bit, because I didn't recognize the fact that that's not necessarily where everybody wants their voice to be heard. And it seems as though, like, what I've learned personally, a more successful strategy is letting those people who want to be involved to that detail step forward and let it be okay for everybody else to follow. And I was worried about excluding people, but the fact of the matter is that people who will want to step forward will step forward, and then you leave room for everybody to agree or disagree, and then go from there.
Yeah.
I think
I'm a business major. We learned that not everyone is a leader, and it's okay to be a follower.
And that's valuable. That's just as valuable.
The world won't continue if everyone was a leader.
Mm-hmm. I was fortunate to have people that pointed that out to me along the way. And that's, I think our group here, the group that we're forming, the collaboration, is where we build our strength for this to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if we like fully recognize, just because like we're in the middle of it, like how important this is, but it's like super important.
So important.
And it's setting, the groundwork for, future online students and, really the university as a whole. And so, like Elle said, it's first impressions really important. How we present to them, what we are going to present to them, like in our initial proposal, is going to be really important. Even if some things are important to us that we kind of have to put on the back burner, like tuition or something like that, just so we can, get in the door, and then we can start demanding stuff. Just kidding. But
it's true though.
At least
start advocating for the wishes of our student population. Come on, Lawson, you can spin it.
Yes. But yeah, no, I'm really excited. I think this is going to be really successful. I think the university is going to embrace it. I think they're going to like it. And looking at, I'm sure that they have a constitution for the undergrad student government that we could go off of.
Resources.
Well, I just kind of like, I was thinking what you were saying about like being, not trying to like rock the boat too much in the beginning. And I think it's important that we're viewed as complementary to what's already in place versus being, trying to reinvent the wheel or trying to, yes, what we need is vastly different than what the current student government offers and represents for on-ground students. But that doesn't mean that we have to like rock the boat to the point where they just like we're unrecognizable.
Mm-hmm.
And like, like you guys were just saying with the document that's in the drive, I think the more like homologous we can be, to what's already sort of in place, the more palatable it will be,
Well, one of the criticisms of online students is that we're very isolated. Can we even work together? Can we work together with ourselves as an online population? Can we work together with ASU? The answer is yes. Okay. But like,
in 2020, of course we can.
Listen, with COVID, everybody's coming to us.
Yeah.
We got this.
Yes.
What, 20 years ago, it never would have happened, but.
I do think that that's one of the main reasons why it's important to keep our opening a little bit more generic, just so that we have some room for that growth in that play. It also gives a little bit of sway so that if there is anything that might need to be added, it can be added. It makes us look more inviting towards them to actually have us as a collaboration to begin with.
Yeah.
Well, and flexible and rational, and we're not, like you said, like,
oh, sorry, Casey.
No. Like you said, not leading with stuff like tuition and demanding scholarships, all these different things, like before we know
we demand to interrogate Michael Crow.
Yeah. At least one day a month.
I think Michael Crow is one of our strongest supporters.
Yeah.
Based on his overall vision for the university and for education as a whole. And
I'm sorry to interrupt, do other online schools have online governments?
Penn State does, a Penn State World Campus. And that's kind of how I kind of thought about it. Cause like when I saw that they first established it, I was like, why don't we have that? We're supposed to be number one in innovation. And so that's kind of what I was thinking about when, I brought it. So I kind of looked to their, how it's set up for them to get examples, but also we have to do this differently just because Arizona State's
right.
It's going to be
different. But we're talking like less than 5 schools have an online student government.
The only school I could find was Penn State, like Lawson said.
So this actually would be fantastic for ASU in general.
How many schools actually have solid, reputable online programs?
Not online, not very many. I was researching before I came, and there's not very many. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 exclusively online to begin with, and most of the rest of them just kind of push them to the side. So they're not as strong as the program is here to begin with. So that might actually work in favor of not only ASU, but it also may actually make us, in essence, a model of what can be at those additional schools.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Additionally,
we need to sell it to Michael Crow. We
the ASU online
just buzz them in this right now.
The ASU online program also includes majors that aren't represented in other schools, like the biochemistry and the biological sciences degree programs. And I would imagine there are others that I just personally am not familiar with, but
and they're constantly adding new ones. I just saw that they added the astronomy and
the astronomy one. I saw that one today too.
Yeah.
They are rapidly expanding, and I think they don't have plans to stop. Even their certificate programs are rapidly expanding. So as we grow as an online community, this is pivotal that we're getting this put in place so there's representation, because we said, how many online students did we say we had?
60,000.
60,000 was the estimate.
20,000.
60,000.
Oh my God. Like,
Keep up, Nick, you're already behind.
like, that's what I'm saying is like, that's already
Yes.
a bigger population than what ASU has on their in-ground campuses then, yeah?
No, they're 80,000 on ground.
As they expand their degrees, this summer alone they added a lot. And and same thing with certificates, they added more certificates. So as they keep expanding like that, eventually we're going to be 80 and 80 down the
Oh yeah.
not have representation is absolutely absurd at that point because we are 50% of their constituency.
Yeah, Casey said at the last meeting that they're going to be expanding over the summer, like a lot. So I think they're going to keep adding more programs for sure. Which will.
Yeah, I'm gonna have like buyer's remorse.
Yeah, you're gonna be
like, I need that degree, and I need that degree, and I need that degree. And it's like, no, Casey, you got to go to med school. Shut up, finish your program.
Yeah,
I have a who's in criminal justice and is taking like classes, and I get boring business major. I get to take those functions.
and I think students in general, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like in the Sun Devils Connect and in other groups, I've noticed that students are becoming more, I think, vocal about what they want. And
yeah,
I don't know if it's part of like this larger culture that's kind of being shaped where we're all online a lot. And, you know, with ASU has embraced the groups now, and now we're moving into the student government. And I just saw a petition tonight that somebody created for the history program that they shared to establish a PhD online for history students. So,
I can only hope. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Yeah, they're definitely, I feel like students are starting to get more involved, which is really.
That was one thing that I noticed, and actually, Lawson, you might be able to answer this, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this before, but a complaint I have noticed a lot was a lot of teachers won't write recommendations for you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Lawson, because you're in grad school, so you eventually had to do this.
Yes. So in my experience in undergrad, it depended on the professor. Some professors like explicitly put in their syllabus, like, please do not ask me for a recommendation because I will not write you one. And some professors mentioned like, I will write you one based on the quality of your work or whatever. And some of them didn't even mention it at all. So I did get a recommendation from one of my political science professors, and it was really, I mean, he was really nice about it.
But generic.
Yes. And because, but in grad school, it's a little different when you're with those professors. So like hypothetically, if you wanted to go on to like a PhD or something, they would absolutely be able to write you like a personable recommendation letter. With undergrad, it's different. Like you said, I think it's more generic. I guess probably because, you know, professors don't really have face-to-face time or interact with students as much as they normally would versus like in grad school. And with grad school, even online, you're interacting with your professors a lot more. And like we have Zoom calls with them and we do a bunch of different stuff. So.
And I think that also has a lot to do with the class size, right? Like if you're asking your your English 101 professor for like a letter of recommendation, they have 350 people in their class, plus they're teaching however many on-ground sections. It's like, oh my God, you know?
I'd agree with that.
I think I've had no issues lining up letters of recommendation with professors. Okay. But I'm also extremely proactive.
Active, yeah. And I'm not there yet. I'm only in my second semester, so I'm not there yet. But I know that was a complaint that I've seen multiple times on Facebook.
But it's also the same with on-ground students, though, right? I mean, not just because you go to a class, like, doesn't mean like because you sat in a chair in front of somebody doesn't mean they're going to write you a letter of recommendation,
right?
And sometimes, I don't want to say kids, that's rude, but young.
I'm old too. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm like old as hell. I'm like, why would this person, like, you have never even like gone to the front of their classroom? Why would this person like write anything about you? Like, you sat there, you turned in paperwork, and they wouldn't know you from anyone else in the class,
But Cheryl, something I wanted to say based on something you said, because my experience has actually been very different than Lawson's. I've gotten 2 strong letters of recommendation. You're in your 2nd semester. It is not too soon. And I think
I'm well aware of that. I know that.
Well, but I don't mean that you have to know your plans, but I think some of those mistakes that students make is they wait until they're in their final semester, they approach a professor out of the blue and they say, rec for this. But rather than that, I've had success in looking up my professors, looking at what their research is, looking at what their area of focus is, sending them an email and saying, hey, I'm really interested about this topic in this paper you wrote. I was wondering if I could talk to you about it some more. I was wondering about your education here, here, and here in this program you went to. Here are my future plans. Could we email about it? I've had success in going to office hours, like Casey was saying, being proactive in the classes. You can even approach your professors and say, hey, in my future, I'm going to graduate school. Could I approach you for a letter of recommendation in my future? And then what you can do is you stay in contact over the next year as you're developing plans. The strong letters of recommendation come from professors who have a personal connection to the students. That's correct, regardless of program, on campus or online. And the on-campus students who are walking up to a professor and asking for a cold call, basically for a letter of rec, they're going to get the same response as an online student. My experience has been that you can get respect from professors for your advocacy for yourself and for the efforts that you take now. I don't imagine that's for everybody, because I think there are professors who are just going to be like, I don't have time for this. That's not,
right.
Come back to me when you're taking my 400.
I have 1,000 students right now.
Right. But, every professor that's teaching you right now, well, they've all needed a letter of recommendation to get to where they are.
Yeah.
So just, I don't think it's
and I mean and I wasn't necessarily talking personally, but like I said, I know that has come up numerous times on the Facebook group. So maybe that's something worth mentioning even more for us as a student government to teach,
to advise. Yeah, that's a great idea.
That could be part of our mentorship is, hey, how do we learn how to get talk to us. We know how to do it. I haven't had any problems getting recommendation letters from my professors either. But of course I wouldn't ask for a letter of recommendation from
nobody. Yeah.
Like I've taken once and my class size was 50 students. Like I wouldn't.
Well, and you may
a final thing that just occurred to me. I can't believe I haven't brought it up until now, is the pre-health advising for online students is atrocious. It is absolutely, utterly atrocious. I was literally told, don't bother, you're online.
Casey, did you ever call that
after it took me a month to get an advisor to contact me, a pre-health advisor.
The way I got through to my pre-health advisor was I reached out to one of my professors from the College of Health Solutions, and she was the one who was like, hey, I know someone who can help you.
Wow.
And then she did that for me. But
she shouldn't have to, right? That's wonderful. I'm glad that you had that connection, that and she was willing to do that for you. But anybody should be able to go to a pre-health advisor and get advised and not be told, you probably shouldn't be trying to go to med school because you're an online student, Well,
maybe part of the advocacy that we want to put down is forming connections with the advising group, so they we know how to connect online students to the right advising, not within the department, people who are familiar with the online programs, that type of advocating for that kind of connection.
Right.
Yeah, I put that under building relationships.
Perfect. We are coming
Another
up.
thing I had seen, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say we're coming up on 2 hours. Is there anything more that we wanted to capture within the recording for what will be posted, which is I'm pretty sure what you were about to say, Roxanne.
Something that had been brought up several times in like the Sun Devils Connect was having like work study opportunities for online students. People asked like, hey, are there any opportunities for online students to like, I don't know, like answer emails or be on like the financial aid chat? Can we do jobs like that you virtually don't have to be there for? And nobody had an answer. They're like, no, they're non-existent. They don't offer that to the online students. So I think that could be something that we could advocate for.
The student worker positions.
Yes, definitely. Like, you know, because I never call financial aid. I always chat. And I could do that pretty much from my house, you know, but that's not an opportunity that's given to online students. So I think that would be something good to advocate for as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like with the TA stuff and, you know, for like grad students and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
And the research
And I think
opportunities.
that could all fall under this idea of making the online program more encompassing, more self-sustaining, so that it's not just about education, but it's about having your students feed back into your programs and support its infrastructure. Online students supporting online structures, supporting online programs.
Right.
Well, it all comes down to being part of the university rather than like an afterthought or an offshoot.
Yeah.
Like being fully integrated into
Being brought back into it. Yeah.
you know, instead of it being an offshoot.
Okay.
That honestly, that could be one of our like main areas, because there's a lot of different like bullet points you could put under that goal.
My laptop's dying, so I will.
Mine is too.
So I'm done for that because I actually have a meeting in like 20 minutes. A work meeting. So I will see you all tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
But I'm actually gonna develop, or I've started to develop something like that Sam shared with us, kind of similar to how ASU has theirs, and I'll have that ready for the meeting tomorrow so I can share it with, and I'll put it in the shared thing that Sam invited me to.
Perfect.
You're amazing, Nick. So I have my notes. Nick has his notes. Just so we're not like doubling up on the same thing. You'll have time to do that tonight, Nick. You don't mind doing that?
Yeah, I got plenty of time.
Okay. And then we'll collaborate after tomorrow's meeting.
Cool.
Yeah. And then we'll bump that post about the mission statement, like Roxanne, what you're talking about.
Is it pinned?
Is it pinned? No.
I don't think so. I don't think I have that power, so I did not pin it when I posted it.
But Lawson or I could.
Yeah.
Although, is there anything pinned right now, Lawson? Because the meeting is tomorrow.
Just the email list is pinned for to sign up for the something list. I'm tired now.
Well, okay, what if we do this? What if we swap it to the meeting reminder, since the meeting's tomorrow? And then after that meeting reminder, pin the mission statement, and we will bring that back up in tomorrow's meeting.
You can have multiple pins. You can have multiple things as an announcement or pin.
You can have multiple announcements. You can only have one pinned post.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Let's do that.
All right. And Nick, are you able to upload this recording to that shared drive as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're amazing, Nick.
It's gonna be a while because my computer's literally like 3%, so it'll be a few hours.
No problem.
Okay.
Zoom will convert it automatically. When you close out of this meeting, Zoom converts it.
If he has power.
If you have power. I don't know what happens if you don't have power.
All right, we better get off. So
You're amazing. Have a great night.
To figure it out. All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.